We're live. We're live on the Jeff Knows Game podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Lopes. Super excited to have on today Rene Rodriguez. What is up, brother?
How are you, my friend? Thanks for having me.
I'm excited. This has been a little journey to get us together, schedules and all that. So I'm happy to have you finally on. Incredible entrepreneur, speaker. He's done incredible things for many, many people. I just want to learn your journey. I mean, growing up, what led or those little key steps to becoming an entrepreneur and what led you there and just give me your little story of your history of growing up and siblings, all that stuff.
Well, you want the entrepreneurial piece or the siblings?
Both. Start with that. Start with family, and then what led you into it?
I think, it's interesting. I thought about this recently. It was a conversation I had with my cousin, my older cousin. I must have been 9 or 10. And she was telling me that she got into this thing called real estate and that they gave her a car. She makes $80,000 a year. She gets to decide her schedule and she doesn't have to go into an office. And there's something inside of me that goes, wow, she's so lucky. And you get a free car and you decide your schedule. You're making all this money and there's a sense of freedom. And I think that was the first time I was sort of opened up to the idea that there was a sense of control over your time. And my mother was an entrepreneur to it. So watching her and how she did it, it was a natural component. I don't think I'm a good employee.
I felt the same way from a very, very young age. I started my first company at 17. So what did your mom do as an entrepreneur?
Well, she was originally a nun first.
Okay. Okay.
Yep. And thank God she stopped being one for my sake. And she didn't stop being one because of me either, which I think would have been a better story, but no, that's not what it was. And so she left the convent after 8 years and started working with migrant labor in Southern Florida with the goal of helping them sort of create a better life for themselves and finding some sense of freedom. And, she discovered a lot of things along the way. One was that the slaves can't free themselves. You can't free slave mentality. They have to free themselves. Okay. In that sense, there's a slavery mindset that comes with migrant labor in that time period. And, it was very horrible living conditions. There weren't many options and a lot of drug and alcohol abuse. And it was just really, really, really hard. And as much as she wanted to empower them to get out, if you couldn't crack that code of depression, it didn't really matter. And so there were no budgets. There was nothing to work with. And so, she understood the power of the human brain. She'd been learning about that since the 60s and 70s. And realized that there was something that did it much faster than logic. And it was music, song, and dance, sort of the arts. So she would gather a group of street musicians together and bring them into these labor camps. And the moment the music would start playing, you'd watch people that were hunched over, depressed and sad and had no energy, no motivation, kind of open their eyes up and look up. And all of a sudden a smile would begin. And it was like that universal language to the soul to wake up and do something. And what she realized was that it didn't matter how good your ideas were. If you couldn't awaken the person first and crack that code of depression, none of the ideas mattered. And so the best part is it was free. It was music. That person that was hunched in the corner over there was a musician as well, came in and joined. The person over there in the other corner was a dancer. They were dancing. There was an artist that came out and started painting faces for the kids. And all of a sudden, within 5 minutes, there's a massive amount of energy in that community. And now the ideas could flow.
Where did your mom get this? Like, where did this all start with? I mean, this is not where I thought the conversation would go, but it's so interesting. And you look at human behavior. There's so many coaches, so many things. When you're looking at whatever it was 50, 60 years ago, I mean, you're not looking at that. There wasn't social media, nothing to bring that up to light. Where did your mom gather that all that information? Was her education? Like, where did she learn all that?
Well, back in the 70s in South America, there was this thing called liberating education. And it was utilizing what's now today known as accelerated learning. And so new ways to learn things that would accelerate the process and it would liberate people. There's an education, there's a liberation that comes with education. And, there's, learning how to read and write changes your life. Yeah. Learning how to speak better changes your life. And so it's all these different skill sets to educate that next level becomes a very liberating process. And so learning those methodologies and realizing that, there was this concept called the triune brain theory that came out, Dr. Paul MacLean 60, 70 years ago, the lizard brain idea and all that stuff, which is, great metaphor. It's not accurate in terms of its science, but it's metaphorically very accurate. And so taking that idea of this reptilian brain and the mammal brain and the human brain and how those three function together, and utilizing that as a way to crack the code of human performance and doing things. And so, like, you know, in the sense of human performance at that place was just getting up and empowering yourself to say this wasn't fair, moving yourself out of an abusive relationship, you know, speaking up and speaking the truth, those types of things. And that's a performance activity. And so she learned all of that in South America. And then, you know, she used to teach kids how to read and write. And, you know, and when you're on the border of Haiti doing that, you're considered a communist. And so it's a lot of things were interesting back then. But yeah, that's where she learned it.
That's a pretty amazing story. So continue your journey as a kid. So at 9, 10, you got the inkling of the freedom of financial freedom and whatnot, the freedom of being an entrepreneur. Where did that lead you to from there?
Well, I obviously went to school, but then played basketball most of my life and was cut my sophomore year in college. Very surprising, but ended up being probably one of the best things that ever happened to me. Surprising in the sense because, you know, I didn't know what else to do. I didn't have a plan B. Basketball was it. And it's all I wanted to do. And if I wasn't going to play basketball, I didn't like school. And so I got a chance to ask one of my mother's clients at the time, who was a senior executive at a very large organization. And I said, what do I have to do to be in your shoes when I get older? And he looked at me and he smiled. He said, you learn how to sell. If you learn how to sell, you'll always be employed. And that was just something that just, okay, well, I have discipline and I don't know what to do with it. He said, sell. I better go do that. Ironically, I get a letter in the mail 2 weeks later, inviting me to being recruited to join this because of my GPA, it said. Well, I had a 2.3, so they must have made a mistake, but their mistake, not mine. So I showed up to join this fast-paced sales and marketing company. Here we are in sales in the health and wellness industry, which I thought, man, I love to work out. And sales, this is what I'm supposed to do. And it was to sell cookware door to door. And so I got recruited into that process and was the last person to make a sale. This was very expensive cookware, waterless, greaseless cookware. And, $2,500 a set for the medium sets. And learning how to do presentations. I sucked at first. I was horrible, but I'd been rejected so many times in my life. And whether it be, bullied as a kid or, rejected in basketball. And, it just was one of those things. They said, do 10 presentations, you make 3 sales. And I just heard 10 to 3. So in my mind, logic made sense. How fast can I get to 10 sales or 10 presentations? Some kids would take 3 weeks to do that. I did it in 2 days. I just called her. I said, can I just practice on you? Can I practice on you? Can I practice on you? And I was a very good student in the sense, very coachable when somebody believed in me. Last guy to make a sale, but when I made that set, my mom got back in town. She bought me the sympathy set. And from there, it was just an obsession to learn everything that I could about, language. And they were handing me CDs from Zig Ziglar and Tom Hopkins and Joe Girard and Tony Robbins and Jim Rohn and you name the legend, Brian Tracy. And I just absorbed it all and became number 5 in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. Or number 5, I think it was. But I was 18 years old, so it was a big deal.
So when you're looking at, like you said, Tony Robbins, all these Ziegler, all these people, influence-wise, I mean, most 18-year-olds are not doing that at that age, right? Even if you want to be an entrepreneur, you're just hustling, you're trying to pay off the bills, you're trying to do what you can. What got you to even have that mindset to continue? Because it is like there's a lot of dedication. There's a lot of mindset of just setting up, saying, I'm going to do this and focus on it. Right. And obviously as an athlete, I always say some of the best pro athletes in the world would make incredible entrepreneurs because their dedication is something, right? So is that all came through that mindset of this, that grind of just trying to become the best you could at something?
I think it was more than that. It was deeper for me in the sense of not knowing my father. You're looking for father figure advice. And
interesting.
When there's a sense of wisdom being passed on from another male to a kid, when they don't have that already, I think it's a very magical moment to and the child will embrace that. And I did. I took it in as if, these guys were my father. And I just kept listening. And I wanted to do well so badly. There was an inner drive of just saying, I want to be good at this. And I spent most of my life not being good at anything. And so I was okay in not being good. And all I knew is that I didn't have the natural talent, but I had a work ethic. And if I could just I can outwork people. I remember somebody telling me once, the four keys to life were: run when everyone else is walking, practice when no one else is, sleep when everyone else is partying, and stay away from drugs and alcohol. And I remember hearing that. I'm like, wow, that sounds like a plan. I can do those. I'd see everybody walking. I just start running. And no one's practicing. I'm going to go practice. Everyone's going to the party. I go to sleep. And drugs and alcohol, cool. No need them. And it was just a really simple standard to live by. And I did it. And it wasn't great for my social life. Because, it's just, I had a group of friends that also didn't drink, thank God. And so they were all gym rats, which is good. We were a really good basketball team in high school. But I think it was all those elements of just really looking for a sense of belonging and guidance and some way to make sense of the world around me.
I love you said that, because I just did an interview recently with somebody, a very successful entrepreneur, and it's so funny that he was talking about something. It was a different mindset, but he would rewatch all the Rocky movies as Sylvester Stallone was almost a father figure, something he would wish he had as a dad. It was this crazy thing, and we had this conversation about that. So it's interesting that you say that you looked at towards a father figure. Have you ever had the opportunity to meet your father, or never had the opportunity?
I have not. He left when I was a year and a half, and ironically, I haven't shared this actually with anybody except my wife. But about 3 weeks ago, she found him. And I was in a meeting, and she said, that's going to be weird if they listen to this, but it was in a meeting, and she called me. She goes, "Hey, can you talk?" I'm like, "Yeah, what's up?" She goes, "You don't want to be in a meeting when I tell you this." And I was like, well, I got up and I'm like, "What's up?" She's like, "Well, I found your dad. You have, I think it's 5 brothers or 6 brothers and sisters. 2 have passed away. I got to get the numbers right. I'm still kind of processing it. And your sister has been looking for you for years, and she's willing to talk in 27 minutes.
Wow.
I was like, well, there's a bomb. And, it's an interesting feeling, because I've kind of already written it off of, life moves on. I'm 47 years old. There's always a curiosity. And in terms of what it is. And, I heard things about him, and heard things that, he was a liar. I heard things that he was just not an honest person. I heard that, there might've been a connection to the CIA. What do you believe? Maybe that was because he was a liar, and it was just one of those things that I just knew he never showed up. When I talked to my new sister, she said that she's almost positive he knows about me, but that he denied it. And, which is what it is. I mean, he's got kids in several countries, and supposedly I'll keep it at that for right now.
That's a lot to intake, and obviously you're born in 76. I was born in 77, so we're a year apart. 75, okay. So we're just a little over a year apart. You said you had written it off, but there obviously was something in the back of the head that there was always an opportunity to meet him.
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, you want to know, like, especially me being a father, you go, why wouldn't he want to be around? And it was always that question. And what's interesting is, from what I understand, it's, he hasn't been a very pleasant individual. So there's a part of me that's like, okay, so maybe I dodged a bullet there, or maybe I'm just coping. You don't know, but either way,
you don't know.
I don't know, but either way, it's just, I'm going to cope regardless, because life goes on and I've got to keep going. I got shit to do, and I got a lot of big plans, and he's been out of it this long. I mean, there's a piece of me that'd be like to put some closure to it, and have a conversation and see what he says. But I know I've got to be mentally prepared for no attachment to any outcome of that message, and I think that's probably the most important piece, is to, if I go in with a sense of attachment, I hope he does this, then it's just a recipe for disappointment.
Yeah. But if you go in there with an open mindset of just, like you said, a closure or a possibility, just whatever happens, control the
Yeah.
controllables. I mean, who knows how life brings, right? It could end up being a positive thing, right? One way or
Yeah.
another, it could be a
I
positive.
think I'd respect him more if he just said, you know what? I had too many kids and I was just trying to cut my losses early, get
Yeah,
out of
I
your life
mean,
before I
yeah,
see anything. I'm like, hey, thanks for being honest.
yeah.
Here's what
I
I'm
mean,
doing. Here's what's going on. I wrote this book. I'll send you one if you want it. If not, no big deal.
yeah, yeah. It's interesting. I mean, as a dad, I mean, like I said, and I appreciate what you said, because as a dad, I got a 15 and 17-year-old, and I'm very like I'm the dad at 15 and 17. My kids still want to hang out with me every day. We go to the gym every single day. I still drive them to school every morning. I mean, got my cup here. It says Papa Bear. Like it's in general. I can't picture not being with my kids 24/7, right? And I just went through a little personal note. I mean, in this past November, I got diagnosed with cancer, and that just put a whole perspective on life and
What
appreciating
may I ask? What
currency.
kind?
We found a tumor in my rectum,
Okay.
and I had a successful surgery, and I'm living life to the fullest. I'm healthy as a
So you're
dog.
clear. Good
Clear,
for you,
knock on
man.
wood. And I mean, my diet, my supplements. I mean, I'm very open with my journey. I kept it very quiet from November 23rd till I got surgery February 16th. I didn't tell a soul. I stopped the podcast. I focused on my companies, let my staff do this, what he had to do. And it literally was a handful, maybe 8 to 10 people that knew about my journey. And then February 16th, when I got out, I was healthy. I was home. My mindset was clear. I announced it. And the reason I did that, it was I needed to stay focused, right, through the whole process. But my diet is I'm on an incredibly keto Mediterranean diet. I'm taking 17 supplements a day. My workout, I sauna 5 times a week. Like my health, my journey is so incredibly important to me right now. And knock on wood, I've done my 3 month, and I'm doing to do soon my 6 month, and I'm clear, and I'm going to live life to the fullest, right? The reality is,
For you.
Rene, you can walk down the street, hit by a car tomorrow. Nobody knows your future. I was given an opportunity to have a wake up
Second
call.
chance, man.
That's all it is, right? So that is essentially my little where I am at this point. But I mean, as a dad, I never really could understand how you not wanting to see what your children are doing or how they're doing, even if you keep a distance from them. So
Yeah.
I mean, whatever happens, happens. But that opportunity that's at least hear his story, I mean, might give some closure to you, which I hope one day you have an opportunity to have. So let's get back to your journey. So first company, what was your first company you actually ventured into and started? And what age was that at?
Well, I joined my mother's at right straight out of college. And so watching and observing that consulting and training business in the change management world for years until I took it over 2 months before 9/11. And we were doing 55 workshops a month across the country with 37 consultants doing the work, facilitators. We had 25 employees. we were rolling. And 9/11 hit, and our biggest contract, $1 million contract, canceled the week before it was supposed to begin. That was our cash for 8 months. And I had to fire 20 people in a day, and I had just become CEO. And that sort of began the journey of what does the rebuild look like? My mother had a stroke and kind of pulled her out of the game. I had to step in and had no experience doing any of that stuff. So I had to learn how to speak in public slowly, 10 minutes at a time, then 15 minutes, and then 17 minutes, and then 20 minutes. And pretty soon I could do a 45-minute talk. And, but I've been observing and watching and studying the process, went to school for behavioral neuroscience. And so I was learning and had been surrounded by it, but I had to start putting it to work. And so that's what led me down. That's how I met, got into Brian's industry too, because, here I was, we lost this contract and, we had no cash. And so, learn how to sell. You'll always be employed. Yeah. So I called a buddy of mine and I said, hey, you're in this mortgage industry thing. I hear interest rates are low and you guys are killing it. How does this whole process work? And he said, come in and I'll show it to you. And he showed me how that was. And I did a couple loans and I was like, okay, that's a lot of money, but I hate doing it. So why don't we train some of your salespeople how to sell? And he's like, he's got 65 of them. None of them know how to sell. And I'm like, yeah. So I put together a program and 4 people showed up. It was my first time doing a sales training. And they're like, man, that was the most incredible thing I've ever done. I took brain research I did from change management, took it to the sales process I learned at cookware and merged them together. And they'd never seen anything like that. And then they said, can we do it again next week? I'll bring more people. And 10 people showed up. They're like, holy shit, that was amazing. And then like, can we bring our realtor partners or referral partners? I'm like, yeah. And that led to 27 workshops created that year. 6 months into it, we got 110 people standing room only in the place. And just the process just started rolling. I mean, all I did was take what I knew about behavior change and my experience in selling and put those two together and sort of created a very unique approach to the fundamentals of selling and persuasion. And that kind of got me the reps and got me to a big stage with like Jeffrey Gitomer and Roy Firestone and Lou Holtz and Ben Stein, a big one. And I came out the highest rated speaker of those guys. And
how old were you at that point, roughly?
that would have been 20. Well, that was the journey. So it was that would have been 2007. So it was just, but it was, I mean, I kind of fast forwarded through the other stuff.
There's two things I want to dive into there. One, I always say this, and I've talked about this numerous times with entrepreneurs. 3 things I always say that should be taught in any form of high school as courses that are mandatory are sales, public speaking, and communication skills. And these are 3 things I have my 2 children going through high school now. It's the least thing they talk about. Have you, and you might already have, but have you ever thought of integrating a program for more youth in those 3 areas that you obviously have tons of experience in?
Yeah. And so I have different views. I have mixed views on that stuff.
Okay.
You know, a lot of people say, well, they should be teaching this in school. And I agree to a certain extent. And here's what I mean by that.
Yeah.
So you hear a lot of people saying, well, man, they should be teaching this in school. They're teaching all the wrong stuff. Man, schools are getting it wrong. And I think to a certain extent, you can start teaching communication skills, tax planning and budgeting. And, you're talking about public speaking, communication skills, all the things that they should be. But there's an onus to the parents too, to teach some skills, to teach kids how to balance their checkbooks and, how to speak in public and order a meal at the restaurant and walk up and greet somebody. And there's a parenting side to this too, of where, because I guarantee you, I'd much rather teach that to my kids than algebra. I don't know how to do that. I'd rather teach that than conjugating verbs. Like I can speak the language. I don't think I can teach it.
Yeah.
I'd rather teach that than geometry and then physics and psychology and the real fundamental skill sets. And then have the time to hold them accountable to it. I mean, teachers in that sense getting a bad rap. I mean, yeah, can we get better? Yes, 100%. Should teachers now improve? Of course. But let's not forget our role as parents in that process. Like we've got a lot that we need to be delivering and taking it on. We can't outsource all of it.
Yeah, so, I agree there, but coming from yourself and myself that have sales experience and sales backgrounds and whatnot, like the fundamentals as a parent, like I always do this all the time. When we go to a mall, make sure you hold the door for somebody, say thank you.
Right.
The common basic stuff, go pay the bill, go do, those are all basic stuff. But I mean, many parents, many dads, moms that work, I was to put it, but a factory job or a 9-to-5 job, they might not have the sales experience. They might not have that stuff to pass on to the children.
Get resourceful. Find a community class. They're cheap. $20.
I agree with you, but I mean, many of them won't even have that mindset to do that, right? I mean, they're going by history, right?
Most schools will offer some level of club, DECA, whatever it is. Join a club. But the thing is, I think that's the lesson, right? We've got to teach parents how to do that. We have to teach parents how to be a co-instructor and co-teacher in that. All my kids' teachers, I'm like, hey, we're in this together.
Yeah.
If he's goofing off in class, tell me, you have full reign to come down on my son. I go, you're the boss in that. And I tell him, I said, don't complain to me about what teacher. You go to the teacher because I'm going to side with the teacher. And now if there's an abuse, it's not going to happen. It's not happening anymore.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But if you're, just be honest in what's going on. But tell me what we can do. Look at what options are available in the schools. There's people have got to take ownership over these things as well. And too often, too many things are outsourced. A good friend of mine wrote the book, You Are Your Parents' Best Psychologist. And what they're saying is trust the parental instinct on some of these things. Trust the fact that, is something wrong? Okay, then go ask for help. If you feel it's being done wrong, then say something. Listen, you know your children. Yeah. And there's also something to be said about being so close to them that you might be too close, but don't deny your subjective experience in that process. And there's a lot of times they want to they outsource it. So they prescribe something for the kid. Well, what if the kid's just bored?
Yeah.
And then teachers don't have the energy to do it. Well, then they don't know how to teach bored kids. And so let's entertain them a little bit. The world has changed. I mean, there's your screens in front of us nonstop, and the dopamine levels are just constantly going. And so, and if we are naive to think that we're going to change that, it's not going to happen. Do we agree with it? Probably not. But I got to keep up. I still got to teach these kids, and they are changing. And so I've got to change and grow with it as well.
I love that. I love that.
And I think that philosophy applies to everything. It's not about whether they're right or wrong. Like, should kids have much screen time? No. But do they? Yes.
Yeah.
Right now, I remember Blue's Clues that my kids would watch. And if you remember Blue's Clues, the host would be like, "Hey, how's it going?" And there's these pauses in between. It's like, "Hey, man, it's good to see you today." And there was pauses, and the kids would be engaged. Today, it's nothing but, "Hey, well, we're going to go do this. We're going to do this. Well, bing, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. Bing," and all these sounds, and there was no space. Just like a social media video where they cut out the pauses, they're doing that in kids' shows. So there's no space to think. It's just constant dopamine, constant novelty, which is what triggers dopamine. And noises that trigger something, and you're there. It's like they're training the operant conditioning of a dog to salivate the sound of a bell, but it's nonstop. And so I've watched the shift. And so in that's what we're dealing with. And we've got to be able to adapt and control, do as much we can as parents to try to balance it off in some way, shape, or form. But as teachers, we also have to step and go, what am I dealing with? It's like playing golf when you played a certain golf course the whole time, and then the wind comes and it blows, and you don't take into account the wind. Well, you're just being naive. It shouldn't blow wind. Well, the wind is blowing today, so account for it. No, I'm not going to. Well, that's why your ball goes, slices all the way out of bounds into the water. You got to play into the wind sometimes. And so the same is true. You got to train into the wind. You got to teach into the wind. And some of those winds are out of our control, but they're happening.
I'm going to dive back to one thing, and then I want to continue with this. Just one thing I had in my head. When you first had to let go of those 20 employees, what was your mindset at that point?
Sad. They were family, they were friends, like family, people that really cared about the work. It wasn't a business, it was a calling to them. And it was just very honest. I said, this is a horrible day, the last thing I ever wanted to do. I said, but we lost our big clients, and you're not being fired. I just can't afford you anymore. We don't have the money. And all of them except one understood. And all of them said, this is the best company I've ever worked for. I'm here to help. One said, I'm suing you. And so it was hard. I mean, I was pretty young to be able to do that. And it was a good lesson though, because I was telling somebody, I said, if you don't like hiring people, if you don't like firing people, then learn to hire well. And what do I mean by that? The number one cause, this is the data, the number one cause for underperformance in a sales organization isn't lack of motivation. It's not they don't understand the sales process. It's not leadership. It's the hiring process. People don't hire the right people. They don't put the right expectations out of what the job is. And so when you hire wrong, you're going to be forced at some point, and you allow people to go back and fail for 6 months, and you got to go back and fire them. Well, if you would have done it right and hired the right person, then it's better. So if you don't like firing people, if it's hard on you, like, I don't like firing people, well, then become a better leader. Period. So then become a better leader and learn how to hire people, learn how to do an assessment, learn a good interview skills. You don't hire turkeys to climb trees. You hire squirrels. And so there's too many of that. What feels like this is the right person. Well, it's yes, that's a part of the equation, but you should have some more data and some assessments to say, is this the right job for them? You might feel great about what you do because you have a certain mindset, but that person may not have the same one. And you're doing them a disservice by selling them into something that's just not them. So if you don't like firing people, learn to hire well, and then learn to lead.
What age were you when you said you did your 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, when you first really felt that comfort level? And I'm sure you're even till this day, you're constantly learning. What was the day like you stepped on stage and you had that comfort level where you felt the knowledge to start passing it on to others,
Mm.
which is a big difference.
Yeah. There's a, man, so there's a lot of ways to look at this one. I never looked at comfort as the goal. So, because most of what I do is uncomfortable. Like I did an event yesterday and afterwards we do a book signing and there's sort of a happy hour. I'm an introvert, so that's really hard for me. And so, but that doesn't matter. My son was there and he's like, he's looking at me. He knew that I didn't like it because I could talk to him. Like he goes, and why do you do it? I said, because this is part of the job. But I also know that I also enjoy the impact more than I don't like the discomfort, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%.
Like I know to make impact, I've got to go through discomfort. This is just it. And so it doesn't, I don't talk about it. It's just what it is. Like I was in the gym this morning. Yeah, that was hard. But so is everything. So is being out of shape. And most of my career, I was out of shape. That's also hard. And so I think I had the mindset that hard didn't matter. But there is a sense of where you cross over. I think in terms of, you feel like qualified, maybe worthy of giving knowledge. And so I look at it from two different perspectives, because I was always younger than the people I was working with. And I moved from, I'm not here to teach, I'm here to share my experience, share what I've learned. And I would use that. I said, here's what I've learned. Here's what I've come to find out. And here's what the research has said. In our experience, this is what we've done. Not like, here's how to do it. I wasn't old enough to say that. I didn't have the experience to do that. But I did have an experience. And if they asked me to share it, I'm happy to share it. And it just so happened they liked what I shared. But it put me in the right lane, the right frame of mind to be able to say, here's what I learned. Like we also took an approach of, in my company, we don't allow the word teach. We're not teaching. That means to put in something that doesn't already exist. I'm going to teach you how to do this. But education comes from the etymology of to draw out.
Yeah.
Meaning draw out something that is already there. And so we would challenge some of our instructors to say, okay, here's the point. You're going to talk about the limbic system and how that's the gateway to long-term memory, but you can't tell them anything. You have to ask them everything. Well, assume that the knowledge is there. And so then they'd be like, well, how do you do that? And I said, well, okay, so think about it from this perspective. Have you ever walked up to somebody and you shook their hand, they told you their name, you told them theirs, you walked away and you can't remember their name? Right. And so they'd be like, yeah. Everybody says, yeah, of course. I said, so what's happening? What do you think is happening when you first meet somebody? Are you super excited to meet them, or might you be on a little bit of defense? They go, defense. I said, so remember, what part of the brain is that? They go, that's the reptilian. I said, now, what does the reptilian brain have any learning, language, memory center? They said, no. Where is that located? The limbic system. So notice how, if I've trained them on all that, I can ask them and they know these answers. Yeah. And if I can assume that you know the answer, and then I just say, what's the right question? And I can guide you to something, you're going to retain it because I'm following the scaffolding of your memory that already exists, and I'm attaching lessons to that. And if I know how that memory works, I can now attach lessons and learnings to things that already are there. There's a concept called pegging and association in that. It's learning. If something already exists in your memory and I put a stake in the ground in that existing memory and I attach something to it, then I'm already forever in your memory.
I love that. Very, yeah. I mean, I've never heard in that logic, but I mean, it makes sense. I heard that before. So yeah, that's perfect.
It's more of a philosophy in that sense. I'm not here to teach you anything. I'm here to remind you of everything.
Yeah. So at this point, when you're okay, and how we originally met, like I said, I saw one of your videos with a friend of mine, Brian Colby, and you're doing a lot of hand gestures and the pauses and stuff, stage presence. Were you the type where every time you would step on stage, you would sit back and really analyze what you did and take the good and bad and really break it down to teach it into more educational lessons?
Neurotically.
Yeah.
And still do to this day.
Okay.
Like
which is so important.
I have 2 cameras on me right now.
Oh, you do, huh?
Yep. The one we're talking to, and then another one right over there.
And you're going to go back and watch this all.
Oh yeah.
I love it.
Yep.
Is that your perfectionist side? Like where does that come from?
There's a perfectionist side for sure, but there's a sense of curiosity. There's a sense of wanting to master a craft. What's the right angle for that? Because it's a new angle.
Yeah.
There's a sense of wanting to perfect the process of, so, how do you capture content without having a crew? So we manage everything from here. This is the crew. Each one of those are buttons that are designed to do something. For example, if you look at my background, like instead of having a crew having to do that, we design it so that I can do that. And so there's all sorts of things that we can do. Right. And so if I can be in control of that and we understand the process behind it, now it's there. And so there's, even things like, let me get the right, hold on, it's coming. There we go. That's the one. As it warm up a little bit. And there's lots of different things that we can do to do that. But these are the process we go through. And you don't see the video. We just had money drop on our video.
No, I see everything. I saw everything.
For the listeners, right? For the listeners.
Yeah.
We can make money drop from the ceiling. There's an explosion. You might hear the dropping bomb right there. So that's a bomb that's being dropped. Maybe even a floating brain. That's
the Brad Lee bomb there.
Exactly. Yep. And so, those are things that we wanted to do, but I wanted to master when to use that, how to use that, how do I grab that special effect in the middle of a conversation, in the middle of something at the right time. And that just takes practice. And, a lot of people build studios like mine, and they're frustrated because they don't know how to do it. I'm like, well, did you practice? Yeah. Like, it sounds like you went straight to a client. I go, I have hundreds of hours of video of me going, how's this sound? How's this sound? Wait, microphone here. How's this sound? Okay, I am 6 inches away. I'm 1 foot away. Which one do I like better? Now I'm underneath it. Okay, now actually, yep, underneath it. Hundreds of videos of me doing that. And people think it's like, wow, that's really cool. I mean, I stand up and I've got another studio. I can hit a button. And I'm standing in front of another studio. I got a TikTok chair that I can just sit in and the camera's already ready. I've got a tight shot. So all these things, but I have to practice like maneuvering between these while delivering content. And so to me, it's about mastering a new craft where before you just showed up, walked on stage. Then they threw us on Zoom, which really just became, looked more like this with a PowerPoint in the corner. But I think that just is boring. But then I go, I wanted to make it come alive, but that's going to take practice, a new skill set. And if I can do what most are unwilling to do, then pretty soon I'll do what most are unable to do. It's just basic stuff.
And repeat.
Yeah. What does it take for mastery? I mean, ask yourself.
It's just, you look at, somebody like Kobe Bryant, where you talk to people that knew him, he would be on the court an hour and a half, 2 hours before, just doing basic high school stuff they would taught with footwork and consistently. It's the basics, and just repeat, and never forget the basic steps of everything. I love that. So at this point in your career, you obviously run your company, you do public speaking, you teach communications, you work leadership programs. What part do you enjoy the most?
What part do I enjoy the most?
Yeah, when you wake up every day, there's going to be times you're going to have to do interviews. There's times you're going to have to do your TikTok stuff. And as you said, like being somewhat of an invert, there's moments of public appearances that you're not comfortable doing, but you're doing them because you have to do them to better yourself. Right. And also, which part do you wake up with a smile on your face, like I get to do this and I'm really enjoying this part of it?
I think it's anytime I get a chance to share with an audience something, a solution or something that they're looking for. So it's a couple different ways. In front of a group, a big stage is always fun because you get a chance to really impact an audience, and having some time with them afterwards to kind of feel the impact is always very rewarding for sure. One-on-one conversations as I'm signing a book with somebody who read it and they're talking about it because they really dove in. I love that one-on-one conversation with somebody who is asking a real question that I hadn't thought about, because then I get a chance to really apply what it is instead of just put the brochure out there of, the certain examples I know that always work and, the things that I think are the easiest ways to get the point across. And so you kind of, you have to rinse and repeat a lot of those over and over. But when somebody asks a true difficult question and saying, how would you do it in this situation? And then I'm like, okay, hold on a second. What would you do? And then all of a sudden this new idea forms because of the question. And so that interaction with the audience to really formulate and innovate and iterate around a solution to me is so much fun and awakening for me too. It's like, it's enlightening in the sense that I get to learn a new application because my client asked me a question I hadn't been asked before. So my brain grew a little bit that day.
What does fatherhood mean to you?
What does fatherhood mean to me? Gone through that question a lot.
You have? Okay, interesting.
Yeah, because I think I've gone through journeys of what that is. I grew up thinking that it had to be the best that I could so that I could create the best life for my kids. Well, I messed up on that one because I think we rob our kids of, I'll give you an example. I've asked several thousand people this question. How many people are a little frustrated with the work ethic of today's generation? And all the hands, they start smiling, the hands go up, they go, yeah. I said, isn't it frustrating? I go, next question. Who raised these kids? And we all put our same hands back up. Me too, me included. And I said, isn't that fascinating? Those of us complaining the most are the ones that raised them. And I said, but let's analyze a little bit deeper. How many of you grew up with a difficult childhood and vowed to yourself that I want to do so well that I don't want my kids to have to go through what I went through? And all the hands go up with nods. I said, and that's where we messed up. The formula that created grit, perseverance was going through difficult times and having to figure it out. And here we come along and remove and shelter them from all the difficulty. And so they don't have to learn that skill. They just say, Dad or Mom, can you help? And so I figured this out years ago. I went back to both my kids, and it's been years in the making of going back and saying, look, I made a mistake and sheltered you from some of the difficult things in life. And I go, and I did it for good intent, but I don't think I'm helping you. And I had to finally get them on the same page of saying, look, either I teach you these difficult lessons or society and life will. And I promise you, life won't be real nice about it. It's either the police are going to teach you a lesson, your teachers will flunk you, an employer will fire you, the IRS will arrest you. I mean, there's all sorts of lessons that life is just waiting to teach those that aren't doing what they need to do and putting the disciplines in. I said, so can you allow me to say, one, I'm sorry, I did it wrong, but we need to reset on some of these. And we need to start manufacturing some struggle, because you may not have it the same way some of us did, but if you start recognizing those points of struggle and adversity. And I go, one time my son came, I said, I could write a check for you and solve this right now. I could solve it right now, solved. I said, but I think you'd hate me for that, because you'd still feel like you were under my thumb, and you wouldn't have learned the lesson of being able to solve this one and go through the process on your own. And I go, so what do you want to do? And he said, I need to do it myself. I'm like, great. I go, I'll be here with you. Guidance, conversation, love, support. I go, but if I write that check, I think I've ruined it. And he said, I agree. And so getting that on the same page around things like that. And I heard Dr. Peterson say something I thought was really, really cool. He said, we should treat our children no kinder than society will treat them. And man, that went against everything that I thought, because I'm very kind to my kids. I love them. I hug them and I hold them and I kiss them. And I don't think that means you can't do that. But when they are out of line, or they aren't following through, and I'm overly kind in that moment, maybe that isn't the right way.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to give them a sense of what society will do, not to go out of our way, but to a sense of accountability. Care enough to be unreasonable in that moment, to care enough to hold them accountable, to care enough to let them feel the consequences of behavior versus saving them and coddling them through it. And I think that that's at the core of how we create a more hardy, a more gritty, a more tougher in the right way, braver, courageous generation. And, I think that the original rise of femininity was amazing. First wave feminism was awesome. Amelia Earhart and Rosa Parks, and just this great things that were happening that could happen while still loving and respecting men. And then a second wave came along, and which was very different. It was, men need to be put down, and it's a man's world. And, and I bought in the beginning saying, you know what, all right, maybe that's the case. And I want in on this. And then all of a sudden I started realizing, I'm like, then these terms like toxic masculinity came out and mansplaining. And I'm like, wait a minute, like, why I have an opinion and now I'm mansplaining? That didn't seem real fair, because my mentors are all women, literally all of them. My company is mostly women, and they run the show. My wife is way more in charge than I am. That doesn't feel real fair. Toxic masculinity. Well, hold on a second. Because if you mean that the fact that if somebody came in here as causing a problem, I would be the one to handle it, that's toxic? Because I'm not going to look to you, nor should I. I'm bigger and I'm stronger. I'm 6'3", 206 or 200 now. I've lost a lot of weight. 240, 250 pounds. Like, that is my job, right? And so, and that doesn't mean I'm toxic. That means that I'm a protector. And there's a lot of sort of we went overboard on some of those things, and trying to teach my son, that it's okay to feel angry, but learn to tame that anger. Don't be uncontrollable with it. That's weakness. The weakness isn't feeling it. The weakness is being uncontrolled. And because at some point you're going to have to need that sense of male rage and anger, because somebody might come in to hurt your family. Guess what you're going to need? All that. Or they see that you're capable of it, which is what Peterson says. It shouldn't be dangerous to hurt people. You should be capable of danger, so that, and this is the big piece, this is what it comes down to, so that I have a choice between good and evil. And why? Well, what does it mean? We all want to be virtuous. Well, let's define virtue. It's the choice between good and evil. So if I remove choice, meaning I'm just weak, so I don't have the choice of evil or danger or bad, I can only be good. Well, there's no virtue in that, because then I have to be good. I have to, because I have no other choice. There's no conflict in that. There's no conundrum. There's no struggle, internal battle. There's no philosophy. I have to, or I'm going to die. So, and if somebody dangerous comes in the room, I'm of no use, because I'm not a dangerous person. I don't have any strong opinions. And I'm talking about danger, not even physically. I know a lot of dangerous women that when they walk into a room, I am much more careful with what I say. They hold me to a higher standard. They create more harmony because of their capability of danger. Not because they come in guns blazing. That's just not dangerous. That's just bad. Men too, women too. This is just about toxic humans. And so, and we look at even the research on aggressiveness and now aggression scales. Men and women, physically, men are a lot more aggressive. That's why they actually commit more suicide, because they will pull that trigger. They're just a lot more aggressive. But you remove physicality from it. Who's more aggressive? Ask a group of women. They're going to say, we are. Women are a lot more aggressive, but they do character attacks. Yeah. Right. They will attack the person as they are, and they'll band together, oust somebody. And that translates really well to social media. Physical doesn't really translate to social. And so it's, we don't hear toxic femininity, but how about, I don't like either of those terms. I'm just a toxic person. I don't like, if you're a man, if you're toxic, I don't like you. If you're toxic as a woman, I don't like you. And that to me would be a really, really cool approach to look at it. And I also believe we need more female leaders. I'm all for it. And in fact, I have coached and trained and will continue to help women do that. And a lot of the women that I work with make a ton of money, a lot more than a lot of men that I work with. And so it can be done. And it is being done. So, but to me, the goal is undeniable value. If you're black, white, Hispanic, green, purple, male, female, doesn't matter. If you're undeniable, that's the goal. And people are listening. People are willing and open to these ideas more than ever. But if we're attacking those that are open with old thinking, you're going to shut down those same channels of opportunity. I know it's a lot.
That went from children to things. That was awesome. There's tons of information there.
Sorry.
We've got some good clips in there. I love it. You
wound me up.
Love it. How long?
Just make sure you get the context around some of those clips, because I think
the context
is really important, and I think it's it's there. I'm not scared of the conversation, but I think it's in today's world, the context of that.
Yeah,
Really, really
and I mean,
important.
coming down to it, I mean, one thing you started with there is, as parents, I've always been a strong believer in work ethic from day one. Like my kids at 10, 11 years old were washing clothes and cooking, and we'd come home and my daughter at 15 has dinner ready. And we've had
That's
these
great.
work ethic. My kids both don't have to work. And my daughter at 16, I got her a job at a local farm making apple pies. It's just to learn work ethic. And I think that's so important for them to
So
understand the
cool.
value of creating a dollar for themselves. They both had bank accounts from a very young age. They both had to deposit their checks. My son comes here now through the summer. He's here back tomorrow, twice a week at the office. My daughter's coming tomorrow to help with the warehouse because she has a day off from her SU job. And being able to teach that work ethic. And there's so many things. I mean, I did a post maybe a couple, it's probably, oh God, my daughter is in grade 11 now. So this is grade 8. There was a a school speaking engagement, and they had to do pick a topic and talk in front of their class. My daughter was very anxious about talking in front of her class, and we made her practice and practice and practice. She ended up talking in front of her class, winning her class, going in front of the school, winning the school, going to the city finals, winning there, and then going to the Ontario aspect, and she finished 4th. And this is a kid that could not stand up 3 months before in front of herself. And in that whole process, I love the journey of the process, the learning, the procedures of the process. So I love all that stuff. So as a dad and as a parent, I think it's very, very valuable for us, like you said, to allow them to struggle, allow them to understand the value of money, allow them to understand sweat equity in anything they do, because we could easily just give them that silver spoon to their mouth, and years later, we're not going to be around. And what happens? Everything you built will be crashed, right? So I understand that aspect, and I love that aspect. How long have you been with your wife now? Have been married?
Going on 2 years.
So this is a fresh relationship. What does she mean? Obviously, she's a big part of your business. What does she mean to you? And now she's in the room?
No, she's not in the room right
Okay,
now. No.
okay.
What does she mean? I mean, it's I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing without her. Period. I mean, it's true partnership. It's somebody, and here's probably the biggest thing. I've never had anybody hold me to a higher standard.
I love that.
Than she does. And it's frustrating though. Holy shit, it's frustrating. She's mean in the best way. She's unrelenting. Doesn't tolerate excuses, doesn't tolerate any of that stuff. And, and it is phenomenal. I mean, the best way, and we hold each other to that as well. We, even to the point people laugh at us, they laugh at how we talk to each other. If either of us is out of shape or anything, we'll be like, hey, you got to get on that. And she's like, yeah, I know, even though she's like a freaking fitness model. It's the accountability and the honesty and the candor that we have around reality is there, but we push each other to such a level. Like I wouldn't have had my book without it. That's why it's dedicated to her. I wouldn't have had, we wouldn't have the success we're having right now. I was always good at this. Then she comes on board and we quadruple, and we're about to do it again. So it's like there's something there that it was an X factor that she has that is unrelenting, and it's because I trust her and we have the same interest.
I think that's such a strong characteristic, being relentless.
Yeah, and she's hot, so it's like I have to listen.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Let's talk a little quickly about your fitness journey. I mean, fitness has always been a part of my life, and obviously, since November 23rd of last year, it's been next level. I mean, I haven't had a cheat day in 8.5 months. I mean, I'm so ultra focused. It's incredible, and it's because I know what I have to do. Right. So, fitness is something as an entrepreneur with business meetings and travel, and it's hard sometimes. It's hard. And you said you have made a huge change. How much weight have you lost? And what is, give me a daily routine for you. Like, how do you stay focused with it right now?
Well, I was 308 pounds, I think.
You got up to that, huh? And how tall are you?
6'3".
See, I'm 6'2". So yeah, that's getting up there.
Oh yeah. Well, 45% body fat too. That's same body fat percentage as bacon. So now 247 pounds, probably 16% to 15%.
You say you're two what now?
247, maybe 15% body fat.
So you're looking at 60 pounds off, give or take.
Yeah, but adding a lot of muscle. Yeah.
Love it.
So
Love it.
It was a big shift.
Did you bring a personal trainer on board? Is this something you've done on your own? Yeah, you have.
Yep. Absolutely. And it was a personal trainer during COVID. I put somebody, and I hired them literally every single day during COVID. I said, I'm not traveling. I'm not doing anything. And they showed up every single day for that time period.
Love it. Huge transformation, which is amazing. Congrats on that, brother. Let's talk about just a couple more things I just want to dive into, just to give some knowledge to our audience. What is the biggest struggle from a great speaker to a mediocre speaker once you step on stage?
Their ability to not only share a story in the delivery of that story, but then to make the story mean something. There's good storytellers that don't have a moral or a message. They're just really entertaining stories. But then there's storytellers that deliver it with passion, and you're in, but then at the end they go, but here's what this means to you. And they can answer that question in such a relevant fashion, whether it's to a business that understand the strategy, whether it's to a group of people that need to change something, but that's so relevant to the change that's needed that they can really tie it in. The person goes, I take all this emotion that you just created to the story, and now I do this. Ed Milet is probably the best at it right now out there. Jesse Itzler, Ed Milet. Those are the two that have really honed in on that storytelling piece. Ed has got the passion and the delivery and the cadence and the energy. And then you look at Jesse Itzler, who has all those, and then he's added music. He brings a DJ on stage with him. Those two are just really on top of their game right now.
When your guests or when your clients reach out to you, what level are they usually at? Like, do you get high performers already that just trying to ease off to kind of just fine tune their stuff? Or is it more a beginning speaker just trying to really, really learn how to get booked and get to tell his story?
Both. I get anywhere from somebody who's never spoken before to somebody who does 80 presentations a year, $25,000-$30,000 each, to professional athletes, to news reporters, to CEOs, to people doing TED Talks, to best-selling authors, to people that are right next to the David Goggins and Gary V's and trying to learn how to do this and more efficiently and better. So it's the whole range.
It's the whole range. And give me a little understanding of your day, like with your travel and stuff like that. How much do you dedicate to actually your own public speaking? How much do you dedicate to teaching and educating?
Well, I spoke 237 days last year.
That many?
Yep. And sometimes it was 3 or 4 times in a day.
And was this prior to COVID? Were you at this level, or this is just obviously in the last 2 years?
Well, the virtual piece up to that number, but it's well over 100 live events a year, well over that, and constant travel, constant presentation. So there's no 1 or 2 day period that I don't have something happening, unless we've chosen a vacation that's been blocked off and I'm out of the country, which is rare. It's, my days start at 5:30 in the morning. They go till 7 or 8, 9 at night, and it's just meeting after meeting.
Where do you find the balance of?
I don't believe in balance.
Okay. Where do you find?
I believe in integration and harmony. And so to me, it's a, I don't need balance to breathe. I don't need balance to eat. I need to just design it into my life. And so, I don't need a life balance. I'm going to stop working so I can breathe. No, I can breathe and work. This just got dropped off at my desk. That's my protein for my lunch. And, my awesome PA made it measured exactly how it's supposed to be. And I know that she makes it so much better. I mean, I'm a great cook, but she knows exactly how she does it. She loves making it. I get a chance to do this podcast, and as soon as we end, I get to consume the exact amount of calories that I need. It tastes great, and I don't have to go and think. And so that's integrated right into my workday.
Do you ever have that mindset of, as an entrepreneur is you're being an entrepreneur to have that financial freedom to do what you want when you want. Like, do you ever have that mindset where it's like, is too much at this point or anything? And why I'm asking is because you obviously that many hours, days on the road. And I just had this conversation. I asked you at my cottage. My neighbor at my cottage is a former NHL player. He's a head scout for an NHL team now, and he traveled last year 260 days or something like that. And I said to him, I go, this is post NHL career. He should be somewhat retired financially. He's totally financially free. And I go, doesn't that burn you out? All that travel, all that stuff. Like, do you ever have that mindset where it's like, enough's enough? Like, there's days I need for myself, or is it just constantly at that point?
I get plenty of days to myself, but I think we have to redefine some terms.
Yeah.
Like the research shows right now, the moment people start retiring, quote unquote, they die sooner.
Yeah. I'm not saying, okay. I apologize. Yeah.
No, that's okay. I'm just saying, so but in my mind, it's like, the term harmony, let's put some meat behind that. Those 237 days were booked by my wife, to give you an idea. Yeah. So you don't like it, babe, don't book them. But we agreed harmony is two tunes coming together to create a really cool song, a really cool sound. I play this tune, you play that tune. Now, she also comes with me on a lot of the trips. She'll meet me there with the kids.
Yeah.
And I go in and I'm in this cool hotel. I speak, I come out, we go to the pool.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that's an integrated time. They get a chance to travel, see a new city, and we go do that. And it was also now at the point when she doesn't like the tune I'm playing, then we recalibrate. And right now, 237 days, we're like, okay, that's cool. We got 1 or 2 more years of that in us, but let's start making that change now. So we start doing webinars, and we start doing inbound marketing. We start doing things that start selling products that are evergreen. And so we've already started that process and started sort of shifting the gears, because that tune for too long is not as fun. But also, she plans 2 to 3 years out in advance all our vacations. They're already planned, paid for, done. So events don't get booked on that, unless it's something that we both agree, right? And so all those things are there. It's happening. All the kids' vacations are planned.
I love it.
And we're also saying, okay, so what if we move and we found a house that people wanted to come to in a city that people wanted to come to? And so now people come to this city, and I get a chance to have them in my home, plenty of space. The kids can play, I'm working with the clients. They go home. I leave. I'm in my bed and having dinner with my family.
You're not in Miami anymore, or are you still in Miami?
No, I live in Minnesota.
You live in Minnesota?
Mm-hmm.
How long have you been in Minnesota now for?
81.
81 days?
1981.
Oh, 1981.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're accustomed to the winters and everything there.
Never.
I'm from Toronto, Canada, man. So you guys are very similar to us with the winters and all that. Interesting. So you went from Miami heat to Minnesota winters. Interesting. That's a big change, but I guess I understand.
I lived Miami and Minnesota half time each city till I was 16 or 17.
Okay. Interesting. And you've been, so 81. Any plans of moving, or you're being central there?
No, that's where we're looking at potentially moving.
Scottsdale. Interesting. Okay. That's a very hot spot right now too. That's potentially in the next couple of years?
Or sooner.
Okay. Interesting. Any last lesson you want to leave with our audience?
I think that don't be afraid to challenge old thinking, status quos, what retirement means, what hard work means, what suffering means. I think that, the best things in life have always come on the back end of suffering. And, the best health comes on the back end of sacrifice. I mean, yes, we want to eat all this stuff, but man, doesn't it feel better to be healthy on the back end of the sacrifice? And there isn't anything good in life that has come without a sense of sacrifice and suffering. And when I say suffering, I think suffering's got a bad rap too. It's good to suffer over something. It's good to suffer in the gym. It's good to suffer through a relationship into a hard conversation, but staying in it, because the benefits of staying through that difficult conversation is so beautiful. It's suffering your way through school. And there's a reality where we say, well, suffering's so bad. I said, no, it's not about it's bad. It's a reality of life. And if I can reframe my relationship with suffering and to realize that it's okay to work hard and sweat and to stay up late and to get the work done and to focus in on schools and to, do the strategic planning for the business, make sure you get your taxes done right. All this stuff is really difficult stuff, difficult/suffering, same thing. Right. And if I'm okay with that, then on the other end, there's all these benefits that may have not been there before. Plus, it makes you more compassionate. It gives you a sense of contrast and empathy to life. So I can appreciate the goods. You've changed your diet completely. And when you have something semi-sweet, isn't it like a piece of fruit now is feels like dessert.
100%. Yeah.
Like, wow. And I used to think, oh, dessert. I know. No, I have this bowl of berries and I just cannot wait to eat because it's going to feel like freaking ice cream. No, it's cottage cheese and berries and a little bit of honey.
Yeah.
And it feels like heaven. Now, if I'd been having, candy bars and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and donuts all day long, that would not feel good. They wouldn't even be anywhere appetizing. But I haven't. I've had eggs and yogurt and berries today so far and a little bit of coffee. That's it. Now I get a chance to have some steak, cottage cheese, berries. I just can't wait. Why? Because I suffered through. Now, I wanted to eat other stuff. I just didn't. And so now, like suffering through on stage, you want to get better on stage. Go bomb a few times. Suffer through the humiliation of not being ready. It'll solve that problem. You'll be ready next time.
Yeah.
And so it's you can't get past it. And I sat here a few weeks ago and I said, all right, let's go through this. All the things that we want that are hard. And I went, well, I want fitness. Yeah, that's hard. I want more money. Okay, that's hard to do. I want a cleaner office. Yeah, that's hard. I went through and just made this whole list. And then I went and put the opposite. Okay, not being fit. Shit, that's hard too. Okay, not having money. Okay, that's hard too. Not having a clean office. That's hard. There was no avoiding hard.
Yeah.
There was no avoiding it. And so it's like, wow, okay, so then there's the old cliche, choose your hard. Because there truly is no avoiding it. If I know and I finally surrender to the fact that I can't avoid it, then I need to reframe my relationship with it. Because just because something's hard doesn't mean there also can't be an amazing joy on the other side of it. That's what I would leave you with.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Quickly, your book. Where could our audience get a hold of Amplify Your Influence?
Amazon is probably the easiest. It's in all the booksellers, Barnes and Noble, Amazon, anywhere. Yeah, you can find it anywhere there. It's on Audible as well. So I read it.
And your social media handles and how could our audience get a hold of you, your websites, all that?
Learn with René, Learn with René, Rene. There's a new video every single day that goes on our social media. So, and there's no pitch, there's no nothing. It's just a new educational video on a lot of the topics that we've talked about.
Appreciate that, brother. This has been awesome. I appreciate meeting you finally. Likewise. And look forward to having you on again sooner than later. Do you have your own podcast as well or no?
I do. Yes. The Amplify podcast.
How long have you been running that for?
Just since I started the book. So about a year. We're actually going to be taking a big dive into it. I've got some pretty cool names coming up that are going to be on the podcast. I just had Ben Newman. We got Neil Ford, Jefferson Fisher is coming out. Damon West. We've got Chris Doe. Some other really fun ones.
Yeah, very good. I had Damon West on our show. A great guy. Great guy. This has been awesome, brother. I appreciate this.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for asking the tough questions.
Thank you, brother.